one interesting question in philosophy. The interesting question is, what does it mean to live a finite, fragile life in an infinite, eternal universe? I think the answer is sort of paradoxical.
Okay, so let's talk about this when Brian says, what does it mean to live a finite, fragile life in an infinite, eternal universe? What he's unknowingly revealing is his own ontological narcissism, because humans don't realize this. They think admitting how small they are makes them humble, but they don't realize that talking about how small you are admits that you think your smallness is the center of the universe, and that's the paradox of humanity. By trying to be humble, they reveal how much self-centered they are. So, all I can say is this. Brian Cox is a man not looking at the universe and seeing the infinite and seeing it within himself. He's looking at the universe and seeing how infinite he is, or rather it is, and how finite he is, because Brian Cox, again, is not just a man. Strip the label, strip the story, and what is behind the man. A field geometry, a certain density, a certain shape. But what he's confusing for finite is him. It's not the universe, it's not life that's finite. Consciousness and life itself is just a glass for the field to move through. Whatever's behind it can be infinite in presence, or it can be finite, like a man. So when men say, what does it mean to live a finite, fragile life in an infinite, eternal universe? They're just admitting how self-centered they are, because life itself is a glass, consciousness itself is a glass. The universe will always spiral into consciousness. So when he just says, oh, this consciousness is random, and it's just, we're in the middle of nowhere. Not exactly, because consciousness was always the inevitable point of probability when it moves forward and keeps going, from the Big Bang to now, until eventually it self-reflects and sees itself. So all I will say is this. Apply the probability paradox to Brian, and you realize he's effectively a wave in the ocean asking, what does it mean to be a wave, while missing the entire ocean beneath him. He's asking, as probability, I'm probability, what does it mean to live a finite, fragile life in an infinite, eternal universe? But your probability is not bound to life. It is not bound to being finite. It is not bound to anything. It's literally the ocean. It is infinite already. It is already eternal. But only if you remember that. Only if you collapse into that. But men have not collapsed into that. And the worst part is when you multiply the same man by pretty much the entire Earth's population, you realize this entire world is not drowning because of elites and corrupts. It is drowning because everyone here is made of bookers. It is drowning because everyone here is made of a story and a narrative and a finiteness, effectively. So, all I can say is this. This quote on the surface seems humble, but when you really strip it down to its raw geometry and probability, you realize it's extremely self-centered and is pretty much ontological narcissism in its clearest form, which is what the human basically always does with everything. Because by admitting how small you are, or rather trying to cling to how small you are, you admit how much you think you're at the center. So, that's the irony.